My name is Melissa Carter. I'm 35, a financial advisor who knows numbers the way some people know prayers, and I live with my 10-year-old son Nicholas in a small Brooklyn apartment where every dollar has always had a job. 2 hours ago, I watched my entire life's work disappear in real time. I was finishing a late-night client report at the kitchen table when my phone began to vibrate, non-stop, sharp, and merciless. Each alert more devastating than the last: checking account zeroed, savings wiped out, emergency fund erased. Then the final blow: the college account I had been quietly building for Nicholas since his first year of kindergarten gone in one clean transfer. I stared at the screen as red warnings stacked like a financial autopsy, my pulse roaring in my ears louder than the traffic outside. The transfers came from a device I recognized instantly: my sister Stephanie Powell. Years ago, when she was buried in debt and swore she'd turn her life around, I added her as an authorized user, believing that family deserved trust before suspicion. She didn't skim or hesitate. She took everything and vanished with her boyfriend Gregory Simmons, booking an Airbnb somewhere outside Philadelphia, as if she were leaving town for a weekend getaway instead of detonating my future. Rent money, overtime, pay, freelance income earned after Nicholas fell asleep on the couch beside me, all of it gone with a few taps from someone who knew exactly where my safety nets were hidden. I didn't cry. I froze. My mind flipped into forensic mode, dissecting the breach like it belonged to a stranger: compromised credentials, an old phone I never removed, a mistake I'd warned clients about but never imagined would destroy me. The realization hit harder than the loss itself. Behind me, the bedroom door opened softly. Nicholas stepped out barefoot and half asleep, took one look at my face and the glowing phone, and stood a little straighter. In a calm voice, far too steady for a child his age, he said, "Mom, don't worry. I handled it." In that moment, nothing made sense until the next day when my sister called screaming in panic, and I finally understood what my son had done. The next morning, in the kitchen of our Brooklyn apartment, I poured coffee with shaking hands and looked at Nicholas across the table. "Tell me exactly what you did last night," I said, keeping my voice steady, even though my pulse still raced from the night before. He climbed onto the stool legs, swinging, and started talking like it was no big deal. "I was playing that puzzle game on your iPad after homework, Mom, like you always let me when I finish early." Then a text from the bank popped up about a new login. It sounded sketchy, so I opened the app. The numbers were dropping fast, like a video game countdown. "I remembered what you said about bad guys online. If something feels wrong, don't wait, hit the red button." So I clicked the emergency freeze and reported the device as suspicious. I stared at him, trying to process how a 10-year-old had reacted faster than I did. He pulled the iPad over and showed me the screen: temporary hold applied, activity under review. The final transfer sat stuck in limbo, not yet cleared. Then he tapped the Find My app. "I checked here too. You made me share my location with you, remember? And you shared yours and Aunt Steph's when we went to the zoo last summer. You never turned hers off." The map loaded, and there it was, her dot blinking from an Airbnb just outside Philadelphia, right next to another one labeled Gregory Simmons. My stomach dropped again. She hadn't just taken the money, she'd run with him, probably thinking she'd get away clean. I pulled Nicholas into a tight hug, his small arms wrapping around me. "You saved us, buddy," I whispered, but inside the anger burned hotter. Those late nights commuting back from Manhattan, the overtime I pulled so we could stay in this apartment. The college fund I scraped together dollar by dollar, all of it almost erased by the one person I thought would never hurt us. I held him a second longer, breathing in the smell of his shampoo, trying to steady myself. The coffee went cold in my mug as the reality sank in deeper. She knew every detail of our life because I'd trusted her enough to share access years ago, back when she was between jobs, and I wanted to help. I'd never removed her, telling myself it was proof family looks out for each other. Now that decision felt like handing her the keys to our entire future. Nicholas pulled back slightly and looked up at me with those serious eyes. "Are we still going to be okay?" he asked quietly. I forced a small smile and nodded. "We are, because you stepped up when I froze. You're smarter than I gave you credit for." He grinned a little, then got serious again. I just did what you taught me. That simple sentence hit hard. I'd spent years teaching him about online safety passwords, stranger danger, never imagining he'd have to use it against his own aunt. Looking back, I realize how much trust I gave without thinking twice. Maybe some of you have been there too. The next afternoon, my phone buzzed with an unknown number, and I knew before I answered who it would be. I was still at the kitchen table sorting through the frozen account notifications when the call came in. Stephanie's voice hit me the second I picked up, shaky and high-pitched, like she'd been crying for hours. You froze everything. Now they're coming for me because of you. She shouted words, tumbling out fast and panicked from whatever Airbnb she was hiding in outside Philadelphia. I hit mute for a second, switched to speaker, and started recording on my laptop while my heart hammered. When I unmuted, she kept going without pause. The bank's fraud team called me this morning asking questions. They're talking about law enforcement. You had no right to lock it down like that. You messed up the whole payout. I stayed quiet at first, letting her talk because every word was evidence. She blamed me for them, the people behind the investment scams she'd gotten tangled in, getting angry over the delay. You think this is just about your money? You flagged the transfers and now the pipeline's jammed. They use your name, your finance job, to make it look legit to Marks. Retirees, single parents, they trust a sister in finance. You unfreeze it, or they come after all of us. Her breathing was ragged, like she was pacing the room. I finally cut in, voice low and cold. You used access I gave you when I thought family meant something. You took from Nicholas's future and ran with Gregory. Now you're scared because your partners are squeezing you. She laughed once, sharp and ugly. You have no idea what you stepped into. Tell the bank it was a mistake or we all pay. I didn't respond right away. Instead, I muted again, forwarded the recording to Laura Evans with a quick text. Listen to this, my sister just admitted the scams. Laura replied almost instantly. Keep recording, I'm looping in my contacts. Stephanie was still ranting when I came back on the line. You think you're safe in Brooklyn? They know where you work, they know about the kid. The threat landed heavy, but I didn't flinch. I'd dealt with fraud alerts for clients before this was personal, but the rules were the same. Nicholas appeared in the doorway, then, probably drawn by the raised voices, he stood there quietly, eyes wide, listening to every word. When Stephanie finally paused for breath, I said, You threatened my son. That's where you crossed the line. She went silent for a beat, then hissed, Just fix it, Melissa, or you'll regret it. The call ended abruptly. Nicholas stepped closer, voice small. Are we gonna be okay, Mom? I pulled him into my arms and held him tight, feeling his heartbeat against mine. Hearing her voice like that brought back memories of us sharing late-night talks. It's hard to wrap my head around how far things had gone. The next evening, I sat on the sofa with my laptop open, the apartment quiet, except for the low hum of the city outside. I started searching investment scam forums, typing in keywords from Stephanie's call, and it didn't take long to find the thread. My name was right in the title, linked to screenshots of my LinkedIn profile and our company website. There was a cropped photo of me and Nicholas at a Mets game last summer, smiling in the stands, completely unaware someone had snapped it. Comments below joked about leveraging the NYC Finance SIS to force the accounts unfrozen, speculating how much pressure it would take before I caved. One user even suggested sending a message to scare the kid. My hands went cold on the keyboard. This wasn't just Stephanie anymore. It was a whole network turning our private life into leverage. Before I could process it, the phone rang again. It was Brenda Collins, our neighbor from down the hall. Her voice was urgent. Melissa. I saw Stephanie yesterday afternoon packing bags into a car. She was yelling at Gregory about hitting the road to Philly fast. She looked terrified, like she was running from something. I didn't think much of it then, but after what you told me earlier, I thanked, her heart racing faster. Brenda had always been the watchful type, the one who noticed when packages went missing in the lobby. Now her observation gave me a timeline and confirmation they'd fled together. I hung up and immediately dialed Detective Diane Brooks from the Financial Crimes Unit. She answered on the second ring. "I've got more," I said, voice steady despite the adrenaline. "Forum screenshots with my photo and Nicholas's threats implied, and my neighbor saw them leave yesterday. Diane told me to send everything timestamps from the bank alerts, the recorded call from Stephanie, call logs, the forum links. Start documenting every detail," she said. "Screenshots with dates, exact wording of comments, device IDs if you have them. We'll build the case from here." I spent the next hour dragging files into a secure folder, labeling each one meticulously. Bank hold confirmation. Stephanie's threat, audio timestamped, forum thread capture with URLs redacted where needed. The photo of us at the Mets game stared back from the screen, a reminder of how exposed we were. Seeing our photo on that forum hit different. It made me wonder how many people out there have had their private life dragged into something like this. 2 days later, at the community art event in Brooklyn, where Nicholas was showing his drawings, I spotted a man lingering near the refreshment table. He looked familiar from old photos Stephanie had shown me years ago. Kevin Murphy, one of her old associates from Queens. He approached quietly, while Nicholas was busy explaining his comic panels to a group of kids. "Melissa," he said, low, hands visible and non-threatening. "I've got a kid on the way. I'm done with this life. Here are Telegram screenshots of her schemes with Gregory." He slipped me a USB drive, eyes flicking around the room. "She bragged about using your finance credentials to lure Mark, said it made the investments look solid. They targeted retirees, mostly promising high yields on fake crypto funds. When you froze the accounts, it blocked a big payout they were counting on. She's panicking because the crew is turning on her now." I took the drive without hesitation and nodded once. "Why help me?" He glanced at Nicholas across the room. "Because there's a kid involved, and I don't want my own growing up around this." I thanked him and moved away before anyone noticed. That evening, we set up a virtual meeting in a co-working space a few blocks from the apartment. Laura Evans joined from her home office, Detective Diane Brooks from her precinct desk, and Kevin from his place in Queens. I plugged in the USB and shared the screen. Telegram chats loaded messages where Stephanie coordinated drop accounts, mule instructions, and burner phone rotations. She'd even sent screenshots of my professional bio to prove credibility. "See here," Kevin pointed out on the shared screen. "She used your name in pitches. My sister's in finance. This is vetted." Detective Brooks leaned forward. "This ties her to wire fraud and identity theft. With the call recording and forum evidence you sent, we have a solid chain." Laura nodded. The screenshots show chain of custody timestamps match the transfers. Then Nicholas, who had been sitting quietly with his notebook, slid it across the table. "I listed every app Aunt Steph touched on your phone, Mom, with red flag doodles." The pages were filled with neat columns, dates she borrowed the phone for, quick checks, icons of banking apps, circled in red notes like changed password once, and little skull drawings next to suspicious logins. The team stared for a moment. Detective Brooks smiled slightly. "That's good work, kid. These are data points we can use to trace unauthorized access." We mapped out next steps. Kevin would capture more chats under direction, I'd preserve all logs, and Brooks would coordinate with the DA for warrants if needed. As the call wrapped, the weight of it settled in. It's strange how one person's choices can pull so many others in. I keep thinking about how close we came to losing everything. A week later, we had the plan locked in. Detective Brooks wanted something airtight, Stephanie on record, demanding I unfreeze the funds, admitting the money wasn't hers, maybe even bragging about the bigger operation she'd plugged into. The earlier screaming call had burned the bridge with threats, so we needed her to believe I'd broken. I dialed her number in the late afternoon, wire already taped under my shirt, small transmitter warm against my skin. She answered on the second ring. "What do you want?" she snapped, voice edged with suspicion. I let a tremor slip into my words that wasn't entirely acted. "You were right. This is bigger than I thought. They're messaging me at work, sending photos of Nicholas's school. I can't let this touch him in Brooklyn. Let's meet and fix this." I paused, letting my voice catch. "I talked to the bank. There might be a way to call it a clerical error, joint account glitch, whatever they need to hear, but I need you to sign forms in person." Silence stretched on the line, then her tone shifted, greed creeping back in. Where Central Park path near the Bethesda fountain, public daylight crowds everywhere. I'm not going anywhere isolated. Brooks had drilled it in visible location, joggers and tourists' cameras on every corner. Less risk to me, maximum evidence for them. Fine, tomorrow noon. And Melissa, don't pull anything stupid. She hung up abruptly. I exhaled slowly, the tension easing just enough to breathe. Nicholas was already safe with Laura Evans at the co-working space a few blocks away, surrounded by snacks, drawing pads, and strict instructions to stay off any live feeds or socials. I still felt his absence like an empty space in my chest. Kevin would be positioned on a bench, half a block from the path, scrolling his phone with an earpiece hidden under his cap, our early warning if Stephanie arrived with backup or looked ready to bolt. Everything was set. A week later, heart pounding, I walked into Central Park sunlight on the trees, joggers everywhere. Stephanie was already waiting, eyes darting. Walking there, I couldn't stop thinking about the line between family and self-protection. It's a tough one to draw. The next day at noon, I walked the Central Park path near the Bethesda fountain, the wire under my shirt a constant reminder of what was at stake. Stephanie was already there, leaning against a bench, arms crossed, tight eyes scanning every jogger and tourist like she expected trouble. She looked thinner than I remembered, shadows under her eyes from nights without sleep. I stopped a few feet away, keeping my voice calm but firm. You said you'd sign the forms. Let's get this over with. She stepped closer, voice low and urgent. Show me the papers first, and tell me you unfroze it. I pulled out the folder. Brooks had prepared fake bank letters, release forms, enough official-looking pages to sell the story. She snatched one and skimmed it, then looked up with a smirk. You finally got smart. But you know this isn't just about the money you think I took. I stared her down. Then explain it. You used my name to scam people, including retirees who trusted a finance pro's sister. Admit it. Her smirk faded, replaced by a flash of anger. It was easy. Your bio, your job title, they ate it up. Gregory and I ran the pitches through Telegram, promised high yields on crypto funds that didn't exist. The crew took the real cash. I was just the face. Before I could respond, Gregory stepped out from behind a thick tree trunk a dozen yards away, face pale and drawn. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. I didn't know about the kid, he said, voice cracking. She told me it was clean, no family involved. But she's in deep mule chains, drop accounts, the whole thing. I'm done covering for her. Stephanie spun toward him. Shut up. You're ruining everything. Gregory ignored her, turning to me. She used your access to verify transfers. The retirees sent thousands thinking it was legit because of your name. When you froze it, the payout stalled. The crew threatened her, so she threatened you. I can't do this anymore. Stephanie lunged toward him, but officers in plain clothes converged from 3 directions, badges flashing, voices sharp with commands. Stephanie Powell, you're under arrest for wire fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy. She tried to bolt, but 2 officers blocked her path. She screamed, This is family. You're my sister. Family loyalty means something. The words echoed off the water as they cuffed her wrists behind her back. She twisted, frustration raw in her voice, the sound carrying across the path as they led her away. Gregory stood frozen, hands raised, while another officer took his statement. I stepped back, watching the scene unfold, the wire still transmitting every word. Watching her get taken away, I felt a mix of relief and something heavier, like closing a chapter I never wanted to end that way. A month later, we sat in the courtroom in Manhattan, the air thick with the low murmur of lawyers and the occasional cough from the gallery. Stephanie stood at the defense table, head bowed, avoiding every glance in my direction as the prosecutor recited the final terms. She took the plea deal without a fight, 10 years in federal prison, full restitution to me, and the dozens of other victims the investigation had uncovered along the way. The judge read it plainly. Felony record permanent, no expungement, possible lifetime ban from any finance-related employment in New York City or any jurisdiction that runs background checks. She would serve most of the sentence before parole eligibility, and even then the conviction would shadow every job application, every rental agreement, every loan denial. I watched from the gallery row, Laura Evans beside me on one side, Kevin Murphy and his pregnant girlfriend on the other. Stephanie never turned around as deputies escorted her out. That afternoon, I returned to the Brooklyn apartment and finished what I had started the day she was arrested. I blocked her number across every phone, email, and app, changed the locks on the front door, and the mailbox rerouted any remaining mail to a post office box she would never know, and deleted every shared photo, contact, and lingering thread of connection. No more just-in-case access, no hidden hope for an apology that would never arrive. Blood doesn't mean blind loyalty. Nicholas came home from school and found me at the kitchen table sorting through the new keys. He didn't ask questions, just pulled up a chair and opened his latest notebook. "I drew a new comic," he said quietly. The pages unfolded our squad in bold lines, me holding a shield of locked bank apps, Laura firing streams of code like arrows, Detective Brooks wielding a massive badge, Kevin ripping apart a fake credit card while cradling a baby in his free arm. Behind thick bars made of stacked dollar signs sat Stephanie, head in her hands. Nicholas had added speech bubbles. "Shortcuts don't lead to freedom," above her cell and beside our group. "Boundaries keep the good guys safe." He looked up at me with those steady eyes. "Do you think she'll ever understand?" I shook my head slowly. "Maybe someday. But we can't wait for that. We build our own safety now." The final panel showed us walking toward a brighter skyline, piggy bank intact and glowing. In America, family fraud hits 1 in 10 households. Boundaries aren't mean, they're safety rails that protect your future and your kids. I still look back at old photos sometimes and wonder, when does love turn into something you have to protect yourself from? It's a question that stays with me. Thank you all for taking the time to watch the video. If you found this story meaningful, don't forget to like, leave a comment, sharing your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any upcoming videos.